You know what one of my favorite nights of the week was as a kid?
What was that?
Extreme Home Makeover Sunday nights
Yep.
with Pizza Hut pizza.
That's true.
We would always get a pizza
would.
from Pizza Hut because no one out pizzas the Hut.
Yeah.
And then we would go to the house and we would watch Extreme Home Makeover. It was like clockwork every week.
It was, I mean, I think it was the first or second year when it just blew up. It was huge and everybody was watching it. It was a Sunday night thing. And it was so cool because, you know, you would see them in 1 week build a whole house or transform a house. And then you always wondered, what's the secret room going to be? Didn't Ty make the secret room?
Secret room.
And it was all this stuff to where they had tunnels, they had all this. And so it kind of, you were like, man, I want a house like that.
Oh, 100%.
But then the stories of the people who got the houses, you're like, okay, that's pretty horrible. You know, they deserved the house because it was usually, you know, dealing with cancer or somebody died or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's pretty terrible.
It was a feel-good show.
It was.
Like you loved being able to see that family.
Yeah.
Like have the transformation in their house situation.
Yeah. Well, and at the end, move that bus. And they move the bus and the people, you know, start crying or jumping up and down. It was always the greatest. The problem with it, though, is it kind of made you think that within 1 hour's time, everything could change.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, on the show, they built a house in a week or did something in a week. But the logistics of what it took to make that happen, the hours and hours, you don't see that. They may talk about it, but you're just watching it, eating your pizza. You don't care.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes for us as men, we kind of approach change that way. We think if I'm going to transform my life, I got to do it this week. I'm going to do it in the next 3 hours.
Right.
And it just doesn't work that way. If you want transformation in your life, you got to start with the 3 keys, and we're going to talk about them on today's show.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to take you from survival mode to living a life that you can be proud of. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
And he's my dad. And today, we actually brought tea on the show.
We did.
A little bit of hot tea. For those who don't know, we're big hot tea fans.
Yes.
We really like a particular brand, Upton Teas.
Upton Teas.
So,
if they want to sponsor us, you can sponsor us at any time.
Please. Even if it's just free tea.
Just
I'll
free
take
tea.
that. You don't even
We'll
have to pay
mention
us. Yeah, we'll mention you every single episode.
Yep.
But anyway, that's an addition that only our YouTube people will be able to see.
I know.
But I had to give a shout out.
You did.
You have to give a shout out.
Yeah. And today's blend is a Scottish breakfast blend.
is
So
fantastic.
if you want to try it, it's a good one.
So we're talking about life transformation. We're talking about the 3 keys of what it really takes to change.
Yeah.
Man, change is a big topic. Every January, but also the entire year. Like, I always think of like weight.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about that. They're like, oh, I need to lose weight. All year, all the time. And it doesn't happen. And it's because those people aren't accessing the 3 keys that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So why don't you give them the first key that you got to bring to the table?
Yeah, the first thing you've got to have if you want to have life transformation is you've got to have the desire. You've got to want to change and not just want to talk about it, but to want to change. When I was in high school, played football, went to football camps. And we went to one camp. I can't remember if it was an LSU camp or Georgia Tech camp. I went to a few different football camps. And there was this one coach who, when it came time to kind of practice, they would say, you got to love it. You got to love the sweat. You got to love the run.
Yeah.
And he kind of got you pumped up. And you're like, I do love it. I do love it.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of how you have to be if you really want to change. Whenever you hear someone tell a change story, it usually involves some moment in their life that kind of gave them that desire. I was tired of being overweight. I was tired of being broke. I was tired of this, tired of that, tired of being alone. and then they begin to change. Why? Because they got that desire. And sometimes I think we forget that. You've got to have the desire, and then you've got to hold on to that desire.
Yeah, because it's not just I'd like to change. Because a lot of people have that about a lot of different topics. Oh, I'd like to go back to the losing weight illustration.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to lose weight. That's a lot different than I have to, I'm going to.
Yeah, and when you have the desire, the key with desire is it's not just a feeling. Because that's what we got to understand. A desire is an inward passion that kind of goes beyond our feelings.
Right.
Because you can say, hey, I want to change. I feel like changing today. But then, let's say it is the losing weight. Well, at 10 o'clock at night, you're watching TV and you want those cookies. Those cookies are going to call to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're going to win if you just go based on feelings. But a desire moves past feeling. What desire does is it gets you not to buy the cookies.
Right.
So they're not even in your house. Because you're like, okay, at 10 o'clock, I'm watching TV, I'm going to want to eat something.
Yeah.
So if I don't have the cookies in the house, I'm not going to eat the cookies. And so you have to have that desire that kind of moves past your feelings, or you begin to understand your feelings and you kind of fight against them and learn how not to feed those feelings. And a lot of times our motivation is short term when we don't reach that inner desire, because inner desire makes it to where it's long term. Whether I feel it or not, I'm still going to do it. That's the key to life transformation.
Absolutely. You could almost use the word passion, because when we say desire, a lot of times it makes us just think of that momentary, oh, I'd like that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But it goes so much deeper.
It
And
does.
a lot of times, unfortunately, it takes getting to a low point for that to happen. Or the other option is there comes a reason.
Yeah.
And that reason is something you care about more.
Yeah.
That was the example for me with learning a new language. I always wanted to learn a new language.
Yeah.
I've always loved other cultures. And so the first language I tried to learn was French, because I was like, everybody's learning Spanish. I want to learn French. I want to be a cool guy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, parlez-vous français?
Parlez-vous
It's
français?
très bien, you know?
Yeah.
And I started on Duolingo because it was free.
Oh, yeah.
And I stopped after about 2 months. I was like, this is stupid.
Hey, you made it 2 months. That's actually more than most.
Yeah, I guess so, now that I think about it from that perspective. But yeah, I just gave up because nobody spoke French at
Yeah.
my college, because this was in college when I was
Yeah.
trying to do this. So I was like, but you know what people do speak? Because I was in Texas. I was like, a lot of people speak
I
Spanish.
speak Spanish.
So I'm going to start trying to learn Spanish. Also quit that after a
Yeah.
month or two.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to put it. I guess you get to this point where you're like, your brain does a cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, the amount of work I'm putting into learning this language and the amount that I'm planning on using this are very different. So forget it. And so I gave up.
Yeah.
But all that changed.
All that changed.
All that changed my senior year of college when I got in a relationship with my now wife, Emily.
Yep.
And she is fully Hispanic. Her mom is from Honduras.
Yeah.
Her dad is Puerto Rican. And so her entire family speaks Spanish. Some of them, in fact, a lot of them, don't speak English. That was a new source of desire and motivation for
Yep.
me. I was like, well, I want to be able to talk with her family. I want to be able to speak with her in both of the languages she knows.
Yeah.
And, you know, once we got to the point where we got married, I was like, or we were engaged, I was like, I want my kids to be bilingual.
Yep.
And I've seen households where only one parent is bilingual. None of the kids are bilingual.
Yeah.
Because the parent that knows both languages never uses it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to be the cause of that. I want my kids to be able to know both. And so I had all these new motivations, and that brought a desire in me that sustained me.
Yeah.
Because learning a language is not a quick process.
No.
Don't believe the Instagram lies that, hey, if you buy our product, you're learning the language in 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not. You can. The quickest way would be to live in another country.
It would be.
But barring that, it's a journey of years. I am probably 6 years in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I-
Because you've been married 5.
Yeah, not to brag, but I've got I think my streak on Duolingo is like 1,300 and something days in a row.
There you go.
It's like over 3 years.
Yeah.
And not every day, I'm not saying every single day I went super hard and was like trying to learn Spanish 100%, but every day I at least did something.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I went from knowing nothing to knowing a little bit to knowing a decent bit to now I can understand most things and have okay conversations. You know, I'm not native in the language.
Yeah.
But because the desire was there and there was a new motivation for it, that sustained an effort that's still going on today.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is we have to grab hold of where's that passion, where's that desire coming from. Some guys I know who have made extreme health changes in their life. It came when a doctor said, if you don't do this, you will die.
That's a pretty good motivation.
And all of a sudden, guess what? The desire comes. And so what we want to do is try to stop things before it gets that serious.
And don't guys do that all the time?
We do.
Guys, I hate to rag on us because I'm not one of those people that just wants to tear guys down. I think there's a lot of potential in all of us. However, for some reason, we're not going to make a change until we get to the point to where it's life or death. That's a lot of situations, and that's sad. And we would love to be part of making that be different.
Yeah. Well, it's like we've talked with guys before who want our coaching, and the only reason they've gone to the coaching is because they've been told, I'm going to leave you.
Yeah, by their spouse.
Yeah, by their spouse. So it's going to be an emergency situation. And what we want to do is help you stop before the emergency. Stop before you get the prognosis from the doctor, before your wife said she's leaving. And start making changes in your life because you desire it.
Right.
Because when it's an outside motivation, sometimes as soon as that outside motivation leaves, you quit changing.
Yeah. Oh, well, she stopped talking about leaving me, so now I can do what I have always done.
Yeah, I
which
can go
is
back.
Dumb, because that's what got you to the place where you went in the first place.
It is. So we've just what we have to do is find a way to internalize it. That's what you did with learning Spanish. You know, Emily knew Spanish, her family. You wanted to go to family things. You didn't want the family to talk about you and you not know.
That's true.
But you internalized it. And so then it gave you that motivation. And I think for all of us, we've got to find a way to internalize that desire and make it happen.
Absolutely. Because if we don't, it's going to be short-lived.
Yeah, it will be.
It's going to be the classic situation of I'm making a change in my life, and you do it for 3 weeks. And then you're like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm good now. I want to go back to what's comfortable.
Yeah.
And our work, Thriving Man, is much more about going from making it to killing it at life than it is going from you're about to die to, well, now you can survive.
Yeah.
We would really like to help guys thrive. That's why we named it Thriving Man.
It's about thriving, and thriving is not just, I made it this time. It's long-term sustainable success. And that's our goal, and that really starts with you desiring it.
So it starts with that desire, that passion, that internalized want.
Yeah.
What's the second one?
The second one, if you want life transformation, you've got to understand, and we know this, but we've got to really grab hold of it, is it just takes work. There's no easy way. You can buy every tool Instagram tries to sell you.
Right.
TikTok shop, whatever. It takes work. Even if you get tools that help you, hacks that help you do it quicker, you still have to do the work. It's kind of like, when you buy a frozen meal, it's funny. I'm not a big fan of frozen meals, but let's say you buy a frozen meal and you're going to microwave it. Well, most of the time the frozen meal says it's better if you bake it. But why don't we bake it? Because it takes more time.
And more work.
Yeah. But why are we buying a frozen meal? Because cooking ourselves takes more time and more work. So if you want the better food, it takes more time and more work. It just does. And so we know homemade stuff is usually better.
Right.
But a lot of people don't do that because it takes time and energy to bring change into your life, to bring good stuff out of your life. It's just going to take time and energy. It takes work. And to think anything else is really to shortchange yourself, because what you're going to do is you're going to set up an expectation that's impossible to meet. I heard a thing from a guy the other day. He's in his early 40s, and he is in the best shape of his life. But he says it's because he's been doing this for like 25 years.
Yeah.
He's been eating consistently. He's been working out. He's been hardcore. That's why it happened.
Mm-hmm.
He says it's not because I did something last year. He says I've been doing it over the years. And I think that's the mentality we have to have. It takes work. It takes sustainable work. And it takes it something we do all the time if we're really going to bring life transformation. There's no way to do it without it. You can't take a pill and just fix everything. You've got to do the work.
Yeah. Well, think of the classic example of I had a friend who his parents bought a bougie piece of exercise equipment. Think of you remember the Bowflex commercials?
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
the 2000s and early 2010s,
Yeah.
the Bowflex was pitching itself as, if you buy this,
Yep.
you're going to look like this
I
guy
know.
who has massive pecs, chiseled abs, and all he does is this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true.
So a lot of people buy into that.
Yep.
And so like I'll see treadmills in people's houses with clothes hanging
Yep.
on them.
Yep.
Or like a bike machine that looks like it hasn't been used since day one.
No.
And
No.
and that's the classic thing. People are like, if I get the thing,
Yeah.
I won't have to do as much work.
Yeah.
It's just not true. There's no shortcut to true transformation. There's no shortcuts.
Well, even people, like let's say you get a personal trainer. Well, then you still have to go to the gym and do what the personal trainer says.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, I know a guy who says that he did a personal trainer just to make himself go to the gym because he was spending that money on it. And what we want to do is understand that even if you do something that feels like a shortcut, it still takes work.
Oh, yeah.
It's still going to take
Absolutely.
you getting up and doing it. And we have to understand that, okay, let's say you do something in your life. Let's say you don't like cleaning your house. So you get someone else to clean your house. You still have to do the work for that because you do the work that earns the money that you pay that person with. So you're still doing the work. Even though you're not doing the cleaning, you're paying them with money you earned from what you did. And so we got to understand everything's a trade-off in life. And if you want to see change and transformation happen, work has to come out of it. And you've got to just go ahead and get in that mindset.
Yeah, one of the big things that we talk about is don't try and be perfect. Have a practice mentality.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the truth is, you never get to the point where you just arrive.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people don't take action and don't put in the work because they feel like they have to perform to a certain level
Yeah.
to make their work worth it.
yeah,
If I'm not, well, I'll give you the example of Spanish. Learning a new language is incredibly frustrating at first.
yes,
And by at first, I mean like the first few years because you're like, oh, I knew that word and I missed the rest of it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Or you've practiced a sentence and then you hear a native speaker say it
Yeah.
at 3 times the speed that you've
Yep,
practiced it.
yep.
So you're like, all the words are slurred and you have no idea what's going on. Or like they'll use slang or something that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Like to this day, I am still very rough.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll have people compliment me, but I know they just want me to keep trying.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah.
like, oh, you're so great. And I'm like,
It's
come
like
on.
the little kid.
Yeah.
Good job, little boy.
Good job, Reese. You know, but that was one thing I had to face for myself was a sense of perfectionism of like, oh, well, I don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to speak Spanish to anybody until I feel good about it. If I do that, I'll never speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like going to the gym. I'm not going to go to the gym until I'm proud of the way I look.
Yeah.
No, that's the point of going to the gym or of any area of growth. We have to be willing to do the process. You've said it before like this. You have to crawl before you can walk. We got to be willing to be embarrassed a little bit.
yeah.
And that's where the support system comes in and becomes really important.
Yeah, it's always fun to me when you go to the gym and you see someone in there who maybe has not been a gym goer their whole life, but you see them in there working it.
I love it.
They're going
That's
for
awesome.
it. To me, it's a great thing because what are they doing? They're doing the work. They're making things happen. You know, I've even gone to the gym sometimes and you see older people in there who are kind of going back to the gym. And no, they can't do a lot of weight, but you know what? They're doing the weight they can. They're in there, which is probably more than a lot of people their age. So
Absolutely.
we have to have that thing of, hey, this is going to take work. I'm going to dedicate myself to do the work. And next thing you know, you'll find yourself getting better and better at it.
And I feel like that's where the third principle really comes into play. Life transformation takes time.
It does.
I mean, I think the gym's such a perfect illustration for this
Yeah.
because I used to do CrossFit. And CrossFit is stupidly hard.
Yeah.
The main benefit of it is afterwards you can say you did it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Navy SEALs of going to the gym. You know, they want to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's funny is I would see, like, because I did it for about a year, and I would see this rotation of people come in who are new.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm getting my life together. And they immediately jump to CrossFit level.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's like saying, like, I'm cold and setting yourself on fire. Like, you haven't done any work to get to that point, and
Yeah.
you're just going to jump right off on the deep end.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these people had the mentality that, hey, if I jump in on this level, I'm going to lose the weight quick.
Yeah.
It's just the weight's going to shred off of me as
Yeah.
I'm doing my 37 pull-ups.
Yeah.
And when they found out it still took time, they quit.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to play the long game when it comes to growth. Because if we don't play the long game, then we're not playing in reality. We're playing in a fantasy from a video game or a movie.
Yeah.
And that sets you up for failure.
Well, and we got to understand transformation is really not a thing in and of itself. It's a lifestyle you live. Because what you're doing is you're deciding I'm going to grow, which means I'm going to go from here to here. But then when you get there, well, guess what? There's another level. You can go higher and higher. That's not a bad thing because I think we were designed that way because it keeps life interesting. If you become an expert at something, well, that's good, but there's always another level or there's new challenges in life. And sometimes I think as men, we kind of get this finish line mentality. That's why we sign up for the races. We sign up for CrossFit. We say, we're like, hey, next month I'm going to run a marathon. Have you ever run before? No. Maybe that's a little tough.
Yeah.
How about a 5K in a few months so you can actually train and not hurt yourself? But we have this, if I have a race, I'm going to focus, I'm going to make it happen, and as men, we're like, I'm going to do it. And we get all into it. Then we do it. And then we do nothing else. And that is the problem.
On the other side of it, there's also a huge advantage if you can utilize this principle.
Yeah.
I've recently, for a message I've been putting together for our leaders, I looked at an example from a documentary about the world's greatest sushi chef. His name's Jiro, and the documentary is called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. If you're a documentary person, check it out. But essentially, this is what he did. He started working at a local restaurant at the age of 5. He became an official sushi chef in 1951. And he kept doing it every day until 2023. And he had to step down for health reasons. His policy is I'm trying to constantly get better. And so as years or months turned into years turned into decades of him making this same kind of food, he developed such an elevated skill, such an elevated taste, that he was able to become literally the best in the world. It's not because he had some innate sense of talent.
Yeah.
It's not because he worked really, really hard up front. It's because he knew how to show up and put in the work every day.
Yeah.
Their policy for training new people is the first thing you do, you can only squeeze a towel. You have to learn how to squeeze a hand towel that you hand to the guest correctly. Once you do that, then they'll let you start preparing the fish. You have to prep the fish for about 10 years before they let you begin to make the egg sushi.
Wow.
And one of the guys that was doing that said he made 200 in his first few months. All of them got rejected because they weren't up to the level. So he just had to keep doing it over and over and over and over until he got to that par level.
Wow.
And so if you can say, hey, things take time, and that's not a barrier, that is a tool to be used. Because if I put in the time that no one else will put in, I will become better than anyone else.
Well, and it's one of those things that sometimes the success is in just showing up.
Oh, it 100%.
It's not that you're always going to be on your game. You know, like working out. I've got stuff in the gym I work out. The other day, I started the workout, felt pretty good, but then about halfway through, I was like, I'm done. That's all I'm doing today. I just didn't have it that day. But that's okay because I'm showing up another day. So it's not like I'm doing it just once a month. It's regular. So there are days you feel it and you're like, okay, this is an on day. Some days are an off day. But the key is you're having the days. You're picking the choice to do it. It's just like in marriage. You know, you show up for your family. You know, days you feel it, days you don't. But you keep showing up. Next thing you know, you've been married 20 years, 30 years, 40 years.
Yep.
Because you kept showing up for your spouse, for your children. And that's how you make that long-term success in your life. And you just have to understand it's just going to take time. I'm not going to be an expert right away, but I'm just going to show up today.
And a lot of this has to do with your mentality.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with your perspective. Because, like, a good example is, what's the difference between going on a vacation and running errands? It's your mentality.
Yep.
And here's what I mean by that before you're like, no, With a vacation, you are purposefully going to a place and doing certain activities for the joy of it.
Yeah.
So for me, I love cruises. I want to go on a cruise. I want to do whatever the heck I want to do.
Yep.
But some people would do something that would make me miserable, and that's their vacation. Like, they're like, I want to go camp in the woods,
Yep.
and I want to sleep
Yep.
on the floor and everything. And I hate that idea.
Yeah.
But they have this mentality, I'm going to enjoy every moment of this. But with errands, it's totally like, I want to get this done so I can go home.
Yep.
One is the mentality of enjoying the journey. One is the mentality of, I got to get the results and then head out.
Yeah.
If we bring the errand mentality to life transformation, you will be a very sad little man.
Yeah.
Because you will either not make it happen or the whole journey towards making it happen will be miserable.
Yeah.
But if you have that mentality of like almost a pilgrimage where, yes, there's a purpose in this,
Yeah.
but I'm doing this with intentionality. I'm doing this, and I the point is the process.
Yeah.
The process is the point. If you have that mentality, well, then life transformation can even become enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think you apply that to everyday life. Going to run errands, if you change your mentality a little bit, I get to go run errands. I'm going to see what things I can do out there. I'm going to notice the sky. I'm going to notice the clouds. I'm going to notice the blessings. That kind of changes how you do it. In fact, yesterday, I had to go to Sam's to buy some stuff. You know, not the funnest thing in the world.
Sam's is boring, in a lot of ways.
I got to go. I got to get it done. So I'm doing it. Well, I was there and came across some friends who I hadn't seen in a while. And we sat there and talked for probably 10, 15 minutes. With my wedding coming up and things, they were talking to me about that and all. It was a great time. I enjoyed connecting with them at Sam's of all places.
Yeah.
So it kind of made the Sam's visit fun because I got to do that.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is look for ways to enjoy the journey. And I think one of the keys to help with that is to not compare yourself to someone else on the journey.
That's a good point.
If you are trying to lose weight, and let's say you have a friend who in 1 month they lost 30 pounds. Okay, maybe they did. Not the healthiest way to do it, but let's say they did it. You're not them, and you don't want to try to be them. You want to figure out what works for you so you can sustain it long term. Because you don't want to just lose weight and then gain it back. That's what most people do because it's not long term. You want to bring that change that you say, this takes time, and I'm gonna show up every day for it so I can have it long term. And that's what we want to do is not compare yourself to someone else. You're not someone else. You're you. Find what works for you and implement it in your life.
Yeah. It'll relieve the stress and those unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves.
Yeah.
And really our challenge to you guys is to reflect. Because if your journey is going to be individual, then your reflection has to show your individuality.
Yeah, it does.
The question is, where do you need life transformation? Is it in a physical area, maybe a mental, an emotional, a spiritual, the relationships in your life?
Yeah.
Think about it and pick a spot. Pick an area like, hey, this is a big need.
Yeah.
And then pick what's the first step you need to take. And then take it. You have to have the desire, but you also have to put the work in. And be ready, have that mentality for the journey, for the long term.
Yeah, because you want to pick an area. Notice we say an area, not all the areas. The problem is we try to fix everything at once. And what you want to do is fix the thing that's the most important. What's the thing that's hurting you the most? Or what's the thing you need to change the most? Pick that first. Let the others come alongside as you've learned to grow in that one area. And as you do that, you'll be able to work in those other areas in the future.
Absolutely. If we carry this kind of mentality, growth not only becomes enjoyable, it almost becomes a secondary benefit to the journey that we're taking in the everyday we're living. If you have the right health habits, weight loss happens on its own.
Yeah.
And that applies to a lot of areas of life. If I can find ways of practicing Spanish I enjoy, or formats of music maybe, or shows that I enjoy, well, then learning Spanish just kind of happens.
Yeah.
And so if we can carry this kind of mentality to our lives, we can begin to thrive.
Yeah, we can.
So apply these principles, reflect, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.